So we call this one Building a New Business and completely restructuring the automotive business model into some new products and some new ways that you do business. Joining me now, let me bring all my panelists on board one at a time. First of all, we have Steve Millstein, who is Managing Director at Aeris Communications. Come on up, Steve. Take any seat. Thank you. John Waraniak, VP of Vehicle Technology from SEMA. You heard him asking a question earlier. Come on up, John. They, of course, are the Automotive Aftermarket Specialist, the organization for the trade. And Justin Fishkin is the Chief Strategy Officer for Local Motors. And he'll be explaining what they do, which I think is going to be very eye-opening to you as well. Welcome. I'm going to start with Steve. Go ahead and give us your pitch.
Well, we're here to talk about a whole new business model for vehicle connectivity. You know, the panelists that just left, as well as panelists earlier in the day, talk about interesting, cool applications that you can do in a car, but there's one underlying issue that's required in order for that to happen, and that is the vehicle has to be connected. And today, the conventional thinking, as it has been for some time, is that, vehicle connectivity must come with a subscription, and that stands in the way of cars being connected, and that stands in the way of new apps being included into the car and delivered to the drivers. So consequently, all of the things that you heard are frustrated by the fact that there's a business model that doesn't allow very many cars to stay connected. If you
going with that, your clicker for a presentation is like getting in your car without a phone.
I was actually stalling until you got, I wasn't stalling very well.
You get a minute back,
Did I lost a minute of my...
No, you get a minute back.
We'll give you an extra minute.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay, now which way is... Oh. Is it on? Okay, great. All right. Some of you have probably heard this before, so feel free to join in with me. We're going to talk about the 3 greatest lies. The first one is, anyone a venture guess?
Checks in the mail.
Checks in the mail, not the email. I'm still kind of an analog guy. That's right, checks in the mail. Second one is?
My dog ate it.
Okay, I'll do it for you. I'll still love you in the morning. And the third one is?
Some of my best friends.
Customers will pay for telematics subscriptions. It's not true. It hasn't been true for nearly 20 years that I've been in this business. The subscription rates are paltry. They run maybe, if you get 50%, you're doing great. Consumers voting with their dollars don't want subscriptions. And research is replete with analysis that supports this. We believe that the real value of connectivity is in the mining of data. That the data should be used to help the car companies do what they do, but do it better. And let me give you an example. And by the way, and not be used as a revenue stream. An example, a Coke machine that's connected. Right? That machine isn't connected to create a revenue stream. It's created to do what they do better, to make sure that the Diet Coke, the Coke Light, whatever, is the right number of them in the machine, to make sure that the change is appropriate, the card readers are working, the machine is at the appropriate temperature. And by the way, you don't have to have a guy go out to do that anymore because you can do it over the air. So it saves them money, generates revenue because the right product is there at the right temperature at the right time, and it creates an overall better user experience. That's the real value of vehicle connectivity. It's not in selling a subscription. We believe that every car should stay lighted from the time it is built to the time it is crushed. We have to stop looking at connectivity as a revenue stream and start looking at it as a way of doing business. And by the way, when every car is connected, then all the applications that you heard about a few minutes ago and you heard about before, right, that's a condition preceding to all of this. And again, if you look at the numbers today, let me just go through those one more time. If 100 cars are built with a modem in it, with connectivity, you're doing good if 70% of them leave the dealership connected. And of that 70%, they tend to get a free period, right? A year, 6 months, or whatever. At the end of that 6 months, if you get 50% of them to renew, you're doing great. So that's 35% of the original one. And by the way, some of the enhanced services, some of the back seat, some of the streaming stuff, only about 10 to 15% of the people that bought connectivity buy that. So realistically, it's not uncommon to see a connected vehicle program, subscription-based, with renewal rates that are in subscriptions that are in single digits. So we think that connectivity becomes an enabler. We have to stop trying to collect revenue, just like the vending machine example, and use it for doing what we do better. It's an enabler. It enables car companies to know more about what's going on in the car and what's going on with the drivers. Right? You know, we don't even know who buys a car. We don't know a whole lot about them. This allows you to begin connecting with them, to enable you to understand the car, understand the driver, and what's going on. And by the way, understand that before social media tells you what's going on in your car. We think that the connectivity brings insight. Connectivity allows the data that gives you insight into what's going on. As I just said, you know, kind of funny, I was meeting with the chief information officer at Renault once, and he said to me that I'm required to maintain these cars legally to make sure they are drivable for 10 years, but I have no visibility into what's going on. He said it's way easier for me to maintain the networks and all the PCs on the desktops because I have tools and visibility into those at all time, and I can manipulate it and fix it remotely. Again, with vehicle connectivity, you can do that as well. Why take a car in anymore? Somebody was just talking about all the processors and lines of code, every system in a car driven by a processor. Why don't we connect to that to maintain that? That becomes the real value. So we think it will improve the way you do business. By giving a free flow of information to the driver to let them know, what's that engine warning light mean? You know, it's a quality of service, if you will, and it'll improve, the data will improve the way car companies do business. Connectivity will drive loyalty. You know, the car is what? One of the major investments that anybody makes, one of the top two probably, the home and the car, and the two times that you have to interact with your supplier of your vehicle is when you buy the car and when you bring the car in for service. And I don't believe either of those situations would use the adjective trust in that experience. In fact, there's been a whole industry created around the fact that there isn't a lot of trust when you buy a car, right? It's called True Car, and it's called CarMax, right? They're transparent. Is what they built around. And transparency builds trust, and trust builds loyalty. And the same thing when you service a car. Not a lot of trust involved there, too. In fact, it's so, what is it, antithesis of trust that they put the part that you bought or that was replaced in a plastic bag and stick it in the back seat of the car. You know, so we believe that connectivity can build trust, and again, trust builds loyalty. And in today's world where millennials have virtually no loyalty to the product, and they are the largest and fastest growing group of car buyers, it's imperative that this takes place. So what we think you need to start doing is something different than you've done before. So as an industry, we keep doing more and more of the same thing. We live and die by a subscription model, and we think it's time to stop that, to look at a different business model. And if we do that, we think we will have different results. So thank you.
Bring up my slides. I'm John Waraniak from SEMA. Can we bring up my slides next, please? What I want to talk about is basically that today's cars, as well as the auto industry itself, is being reinvented, restructured, and re-envisioned. And this new era of the automobile, if you will, I like to call basically democratizing the connected car. So if you missed the muscle car era of the 60s, I think you were in on it, Brian. Don't miss the connected car revolution, because that is the next very cool era that we are having. I mean, cars are social by design. Even Geronimo had a Cadillac. But what happened? Well, we had smartphones before we had smart cars. Let's take a look at the technology roadmap of 1956, what, in this case, General Motors thought 1976 would look like. So the point is, we had the technology. Take a look at this video. Whoops. Can you go back? There we are. Sorry about that.
Hey, I wonder what we'd hear if I'd turn on the switch and we're driving along in 1976. Hello, Tower. This is Firebird 2304. Firebird 2304. How are things on the safety autoway?
Tower to Firebird 2. Tower to Firebird 2. All traffic moving in normal pattern.
Hey, Mr. Tower Man, where do we light? Where do you suggest that we relax for the night?
So a little bit of a Hollywood connection there, as well as Silicon Valley. But the point I want to make again, the smartphone came before the smart car, and basically technology drives product content. Connected cars drive social context, and there's a huge difference. The technology vision was there 60 years ago. What we didn't have was the talent or the social context to integrate a lot of this. And certainly product is king. All the launches we're seeing this week here at the LA Auto Show and next month in Detroit in January. But connectivity, electronics, and software rule the upgradability of the car. Henry democratized the first car revolution, and Alan was certainly the first CEO that got it right in terms of the connected car revolution. And it's not just about new cars. I didn't mean for that question to be as deer in the headlights looking to the OEs that were up here. There are 250 million vehicles in the US car park alone, and John Ellis tells me over 1 billion that can be retrofitted. So a spokesperson there, Neil Young, says, an old car can take you to new places. There are 250 million opportunities to take those systems and get them embedded, installed, and evaluated in the public's hands, and they're doing that in Ann Arbor, Michigan, with 3,000 vehicles today on the roads. Great opportunity for the aftermarket. There's new players, there's new rules. It's new business, revenue, and organization models. You have to create the value, you have to deliver the value, and you have to capture that value. And those organization models are very different today. It's what I'll call the talent roadmaps. And NVIDIA is a great example of that. Art Center and Clemson University teamed up with SEMA, and it's basically what they're calling Deep Orange. And it's a disruptive talent development model aligned with the advanced technology, in this case, a lot about the connected car. So it's a design and an engineering collaboration. It's talent-driven innovation. That's what we didn't have 60 years ago in the technology roadmaps. We have it today. Taking a risk, trial and error, it's literally how automobile companies and aftermarket companies operate today, and giving the kids, the next generation, that experience at the engineering and product development level. So if you ask the youth to create a more social car, and we're up to Deep Orange 7, 7th generation already, and you said, okay, connected lifestyle meeting urban mobility. The solution is not more online social media integration, it's a 6-seat hybrid sports car. And that was Deep Orange 3 that you see there. All 6 of the people you see in that vehicle are in Detroit working in the epicenter of the engineering community and have excellent jobs. This is your next generation of automotive product development leaders. Many have the title of vehicle architect. Lots of cool things happening there, again, with the talent model. I want to talk a bit about branding. Heard some of that in the last session. Branding connectivity. Help customers tell their story, not yours. When Nick Woodman introduced the GoPro, you never heard him talk about the camera. He talked about the videos that were uploaded that people shared. It's the same with the social context of the connectivity. And racing is life. As Steve McQueen said, everything before and after is just waiting. It's the same with connectivity, particularly for youth. They sleep with their phone. They'd spend their last $10 topping off their phone, not their car, if they had one. So the point is, that is part of their life. It is their life. And you can never be too connected. The younger you are, the more you get it. And I don't mean age. I mean worldview. And that's how connectivity in the social context will happen. And finally, you can't fake true cool. What Detroit created became an icon and an inspiration to the rest of the world. Motor City applications meeting Hollywood as well as Silicon Valley. That collaboration, just like Art Center and Clemson working together, is what the industry is evolving to. So please stand by. The connected car revolution is live, and it's talent-driven innovation automotive programs like Deep Orange that are leading the way. So if you missed that first revolution of the muscle car, don't miss this one. Thank you.
So I think I was invited to sort of push the limits on what we think about when we refer to a connected car, from beyond software to hardware. And if you don't know what I mean, maybe after we have this little chat, you will. What? So we've all seen this. Henry Ford, second industrial revolution, the production line, mass manufacturing, 10 million cars, 20 million cars, amortizing cost over the long haul, right? Our founder and CEO at Local Motors, Jay Rogers, his grandfather, Ralph B. Rogers, owned the Indian Motorcycle Company and was the president of Cummins. You can actually see him in a better picture with his hands in his pockets in the window of that car. And he understood this second industrial revolution, and he understood it in the negative way because he saw what happened when consumer preference changed and went against him. He saw what happened when commodities prices went against him, and he was looking to make hundreds of thousands of units. So Jay, our founder, was a Marine in Iraq when he had the idea for Local Motors. He had seen a lot of his buddies maimed and killed in Vietnam-era vehicles. And he realized it takes 30 years to get these vehicle systems to the battlefield. And he had an idea, and he had been a follower of Linux, the first open source operating system. And so he developed a platform, we've developed a platform that has two components to it: an online co-creation portal. So now 130,000 people around the world work together online to design vehicles, and an offline distributed micro-manufacturing component. We're building 50 of these manufacturing units that can put out about 2,000 units a year, which isn't a huge dent in the global automotive market, but it can get specific solutions to the market pretty quickly. So our community globally uses our platform to do two things: design vehicles with their peers, build them locally at a microfactory, and if they have an idea or a product, then they sell it through Local Motors and monetize by getting a royalty, just like the producer or songwriter or artist gets paid in the music business. If it's a crowd of people that's worked on the vehicle, they all participate based on the weight of their input in the earnings from that vehicle. These are some of the products that our community has brought to market. Some are initial, from the ground up designs. Others are third-party products that have been iterated on by our community. And some are just products that help facilitate our platform. So what's enabling this revolution is the digitization of design in vehicles. So this is an example of how you and I could be on two sides of the world and work on the same CAD model together by sharing the information in this program. And then if you bring 7,000 people together from around the world, you get this first vehicle called the Rally Fighter that Local Motors put on the road in 2010. A piece of this Rally Fighter, that's the microfactory we built the Rally Fighter in Phoenix, is the fact that we can pull off-the-shelf parts from existing auto manufacturers. So the Rally Fighter, which you'll see here, has a GM engine, it has Honda Civic headlights, it has parts from Mazda, Dodge, and many others in the vehicle. So I think of it as sort of what P. Diddy's done to music from the 50s, right? He's remixed it, he's updated it, and he's come up with something that we all want to dance to. And this is the so what factor. I've compared our first vehicle to the Chevy Volt, to the Fisker Karma, which is no longer being put on the road, obviously, and the Tesla Model S. And what we found is our model, where you bring more minds together to work on a problem, brings the car to market about 5 times faster and at 100 times less cost. What you don't see on here is that we can't put out 1 million units. We can put out 2,000 units per microfactory we put up. So they're more niche solutions for local economies. Looks like I need to speed up a little bit. So DARPA then came to us and said to Jay, you're right, we're having an issue with our vehicles. Can you produce a vehicle that is a rescue and resupply vehicle for soldiers and can get 4 soldiers out in the prone in full gear at speeds of 100 miles an hour in Afghanistan? And our community did it in 4 months, from scoping with top brass to putting it on the field in Afghanistan for about $800,000. And so things came full circle for Jay. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. As it relates to connected car software, we've been doing work with Intel, IBM, the All Scene Alliance, the Linux Foundation. This was our first connected car, and we've been taking it, and this is another version, to hackathons around the world. This just happened in September on the Strip in Las Vegas in partnership with AT&T. We had hundreds of hackers there helping us develop our open source software platform for the vehicle. And we're taking this beyond just the software component to the hardware component. In April, we had this idea, why don't we 3D print a car? And many of you have probably heard about it. And this is where it comes from the software side to the hardware side. The same bytes of data are now becoming bits, right? So 2 people can work from around the world, and then they can actually send that data to a machine somewhere else that prints just as they've designed it. And this is, how do I play here? This is the car being made at IMTS September 11th or 12th, no, it was September 13th. So with the help of our global community, we're going to have those cars on the road in 8 months and available to consumers. You'll walk into one of our shops, you'll go to a screen, you'll pick one of 9 bodies, you'll pick one of 3 powertrains, you'll pick your wheels, your tires, and then we'll print it while you wait. And what we're working on is you'll come back in a year if you want a new vehicle, and we'll strip it down, we'll melt it down, and we'll build you a new one for half the price. That part we're still figuring out, but we're close. And I think we're going to get there. This was the vehicle we took to New York in the Today Show last week or the week before, and I wanted to put a shot in from, we led the cruise at SEMA last week, or it was 2 weeks ago, so John was a big part of that, so thank you, and I'll stop there. I had one more video. Well, we'll just play this video really quickly. The only reason I play this is, imagine taking it one step further so that's an electric drift trike. I thought it was the dumbest idea we had ever come up with. But what happened was we decided to crowdfund it. That was funded by our global community, people buying them before they were ever made in 48 hours. And that's about a $2,000 per or $2,500 per crowdfunding type of expense for people. So it's not a car yet, but we're very close to the point. If you're thinking, we think we'll sell the 3D printed car between $18,000 and $30,000. So we're getting close to the point where people are going to be able to say, I want that. I'm going to be part of designing it. I'm going to buy it before it hits the road, and then I'm going to continue to iterate on it with others. And so I hope this, I'll be around and happy to answer questions, but I hope it sort of expanded your thoughts about connected cars a little bit. And sorry for going over.
Oh, not at all. Good deal. Thank you, guys. 3 really interesting avenues of thought. Told you, right? Our mics are open for Q&A on this one, so left, center, and right. Go ahead and queue up. I just want to hit a couple of guys up here with questions. My first one is to Justin, which is, really? That's amazing. You guys have got a very different take on the model of come and get a car this weekend.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
really?
like this hour. Let me ask you, Steve, because you struck a chord that we've been talking about a lot in our shop, which is this idea of charging for the telematics services. Do you think right now automakers are doing that because it's early days? Why not take money off the table while you have early adopters who are typically buying premium cars, though not always, and then later ease into a model where it's free because we know how much value we're getting? Or do you think they're making a long play to consistently charge for these services?
I think that, am I on?
Let's get his mic up there.
I think the tide is starting to turn, in part because they just look at the numbers today. Doesn't make sense. So, you know, if 20% of the cars are staying connected. But part of the problem is the vehicle connectivity is siloed in the OEM organizations. So they have set up organizations to be a profit center. And that silo needs to be broken. It needs to become the part of and responsibility of the entire enterprise to look at the role and the value that vehicle connectivity can bring to everything they do. Just like engineers in the car companies are you know, the holy grail is power management, right? Every time they're designing something, it's designed with the understanding of what it does with power management. They need to start doing the same thing with connectivity. What role can connectivity play as I'm designing this portion of the car? And when that takes place, when we break down that silo, I think we'll see a different approach.
That's interesting, and I see, John, I see you nodding along vigorously because that's kind of what you were going after, is this idea of people that come into the industry with a holistic view of cars, not just a single specialty. Is that we're reading into that?
Oh, we're beyond commoditization. And democratization is really the personalization of the car and the systems in the car. Just like Justin and Local Motors. I mean, it's not mine until I make it mine, and I mean, that's the epitome of making it mine.
But you're excited about people coming into the industry, like with Deep Orange, who really understand the whole vehicle as a product, not just their piece.
Systems engineers. You know, you got the orthopedics surgeons, if you will, or the mechanical engineers. The neurosurgeons are the electrical engineers. SEMA's the plastic surgeons of the industry, if you will. But basically, systems engineers know the whole product. We didn't have those types of folks 50 years ago.
Interesting. Let's see. Who we got at the floor here? Okay, go ahead. Okay, well, come on up. Don't be shy. Ask some questions. This is really new stuff. Probably scratching your head saying, what did I ask? I want to talk to you guys about this idea of new ideas. You're coming at new ideas from very different places. You're all in very different sectors and very different points of view. But as you are relating to this auto industry from each of your points of view, how do you crack the nut on any of these three different viewpoints within a very big entrenched industry? One's doing suddenly very well again in the US, trending nicely to somewhere near 17 million units this year. The good days are back. The auto industry in many corners is going to say, yeah, what we do and how we do it is working. And in general, it's an industry that has a very strong ethic of being its own compass. What are some of the secrets for anyone in this room for cracking that code of getting either consumers to think differently, or most importantly, to get automakers to think differently about how they do business? Anyone's ideas?
I mean, for us, it's about our existence, right? People can make one of our rally fighters without buying it from us. There's an open wiki online with the parts you need to buy and taking you through every single step as a novice. And you don't have to come to Local Motors, and that benefits the car, the entrenched players by selling parts. And I would, beyond that, we've been hired by some of the automakers for our crowd to work on their vehicles. In fact, we just did a partnership with GE to do all their appliance innovation. Use the same model to build appliances the same way we're making cars. And so I think people are coming around. Like, there's a famous quote from Bill Gates, when asked about Linux early on, give me 5 coders and I'll put all the hackers in the world out of business. And what we see now is that Linux runs most of the mission-critical computers in the world. And so it's coming, this open source hardware revolution, this third industrial revolution. And I think the smart auto manufacturers are the ones that have called us first. And I'll leave that to you all to decide.
When will you know that you're not just a side bet that they placed in a moment of fancy around the year 2013, 2014? When will you know that you're in? What kind of indicators will you look for that, yeah, they understand our way of doing business permanently?
Yeah, I don't know that we need the auto manufacturers to understand it permanently. We keep growing community. We keep putting out better products. A Chinese car manufacturer just announced that they were going to build our rally fighter in China, call it the China Rally Fighter. And we love that. That's great because by the time they get their first out, we're going to be on iteration 6. By the time they get their second version out, we'll be on iteration 12. We'll never have a recall because every machine that we make is different than the one before it. Because it's better, because people that own it are online posting and saying, oh, this went wrong, I fixed it this way, or hey, head engineer, how do I fix this? And the community is helping us do it. And so we improve with each unit that comes off. Sorry.
Yeah, I had a quick, the SEMA business model is based on what we call lean customization, which is basically build in the profits so you don't have to reverse engineer the costs. So that whole idea of upgradability, now with embedded software, being able to upgrade the vehicle, that's really what the aftermarket is a lot closer to what I'll call the pulse of the consumer. Give them what they want, and maybe it's not an elegant solution, but get it out there and then get it democratized so more people are using and accepting the technology.
It's been a tough few years for the 12-volt industry for a variety of reasons, but a lot of it is the dash got very proprietary, got very rich, satisfied a lot of needs. Can you honestly predict, John, that there's going to be a more vibrant aftermarket for connected tech, or is it still going to be along the margins?
Yes and no, the answer. But when you think about it, literally, SEMA's been hacking into vehicles for 50 years and getting into trouble for it. Now it's cool if you do it with Facebook and Ford, those types of people. But I think with there'll be a degree of approaching the firewall and help with approaching the firewall. And there's some reasons why you wouldn't want to go past the firewall. But I think we'll see more collaboration in that area.
I want to get to our question here, sir.
Gentlemen, Zoran Sigina from LA Car. Having listened all day about the battle between the automotive manufacturers, if you want to call it, or and the manufacturers of Google, Android, and other products, you have users who are used to the product cycle that is measured in months versus people who are putting products whose product development is measured in years. You have generation that cares more about their cell phones than about their cars. I don't know how many people here have more than one cell phone, how many people here more than one car. Are we looking at basically domination of the transatlantic flight sometime in the 50s when these beautiful steel devices that took you across the Atlantic for 4 or 5 days gave way to the small aluminum boxes that took you there in 6 hours? That's pretty much the question for the entire panel.
Are we looking to, at that time, I'm sorry.
Are we looking at the battle between airplanes and transatlantic liners across the Atlantic?
Are we looking at that? I mean, I would say we're looking to put, the flying cars out there. We're looking for hyperloops, and there's that vehicular innovation has trailed behind other industries significantly because of the huge upfront costs required. And I think that what we hope at Local Motors, and you see it at SEMA too, is to go back to an age where people were allowed to go under their hoods. When it doesn't void their warranty to start cranking on their car. And so I don't know, I'm not looking specifically at that transatlantic, airplane.
Ships versus airplanes.
The ships. Oh, sorry, I get it.
Transatlantic liners that had transported.
I didn't hear you say ships. I'm sorry.
Sorry, ships.
I think that there's always going to be room for both. Like in our case, an economy of scale as well as our economy of scope. And I think they're actually going to match very well together because the economy of scope allows you to identify what's going to be successful before you go to scale. And I don't know that answers your question.
I think SEMA kind of finds the wormhole. How do you get there faster?
How do you get there faster?
All right, thank you very much for the question. Appreciate it. All right, panel, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for some really refreshing ideas.